know what I'm saying? Well, we definitely want you to get involved in the movement. Yo, during this segment, we're going to discuss some of the world's most controversial issues and shed light on the world that most people seem to totally neglect and forget about. So all we ask is that you just listen with an open mind. Today is the day. Today is the day. Today is that day.
Things there along with her in relation to his relationship with his attorney. Clients, if you hire an attorney, the courts are doing, which is a huge set of we are word control. But I decided that if I were to bring slides, it's going to take me all night because there's just so much I want to say about the system we live under. It is the most incredible array of treason, lies, crimes against the state. It's just an incredible story of how this country operates, who owns it, and consequently, as I said, if I brought slides, I wouldn't get through tonight. So I'm just going to kind of meander over some of the points I want to make. And it may not follow a consistent pattern, but just kind of follow along with me. Because the point I want to make tonight is that words are very important. We as humans are word controlled. We are word controlled humans. You can say something to someone and they will beat you up because they don't like the words. You can say something to another person, they will love you because of the words. But what you need to understand is that there's a world of difference between a dictionary definition of a word and a legal or lawful dictionary definition of a word. When you go into court, when you're dealing with attorneys and judges, the words that you use do not mean the same thing at all. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. Here it is. Corpus juris secundum, which is a complete restatement of the entire American law. Corpus juris secundum, which is a huge set of law volumes in the Institute Law Library, and I photocopied this. Under the heading of attorney and client, it says, an attorney has an obligation to the courts and to the public, no less significant than his obligation to his clients. Thus, an attorney occupies a dual position which imposes dual obligations. His first duty is to the courts and to the government or public, not to the client. So the first duty of an attorney is to the courts and to the government and not to the client. And whenever the duties of his client conflict with those he owes as an officer of the court in the administration of justice, the former must yield to the latter. So anytime you might have a difference with what the judge is doing or the courts are doing, it doesn't matter. They're the boss. And the attorney works for them, not you. Then in corpus juris secundum, it goes on to say under attorney and client, a client is one who applies to a lawyer or a counselor for advice or direction in a question of law. A client is also called a ward of the court in relation to his relationship with his attorney. Clients, if you hire an attorney, you're a client. And a client is a ward of the court. Look up in Black's Law Dictionary the word ward of the court, and it says an infant or a person of unsound mind. According to the law, if you hire an attorney, you're an idiot. That's what the law book says. See if you can remember this quotation. For the first time, a civilized nation has full gun registration. Our streets will be safer, our police more effective, and the world will follow our lead to the future. That's it, Adolf Hitler. You know how many employees the United States Post Office has? No. How many employees did the United States Post Office have? A guess.
800,000.
Okay. All of you are wrong. 5 employees of the United States of America Post Office. Now we have a privately owned company owned by the guy in England that's called the United States Postal Service, not Post Office. Postal Service is a privately owned company. It's owned by some people in England, and they have a franchise to operate here in America with your mail. So when you go into what you call the post office, just remember, it is not run by the American government. This is a privately owned corporation. And consequently, it's operating as a military unit, and that's why if you're drafted, you can go down and swear in at the post office, because it is under international military justice. So I think that there's something, I want to read you something here to give you an idea about, because this is the world of occultism that I love, and this is the kind of thing that I love. I want to read you something. You probably have heard this before. Abraham Lincoln, and the reason I'm reading this is to show you that there is a world of occult power behind world governments. And most people think things just happen by chance. No way. And the whole idea is, I think, well expressed in this. Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. John Kennedy was elected to Congress 1946. 100 years exactly. Abe Lincoln was elected president in 1860. John Kennedy was elected president 1960. The names Lincoln and Kennedy both contain 7 letters. Both were particularly concerned with civil rights. Both wives lost children while living in the White House. Both presidents were shot on a Friday. Both presidents were shot in the head. Lincoln's secretary was named Miss Kennedy. Kennedy's secretary was named Miss Lincoln. Both were assassinated by Southerners. Both were succeeded by Southerners. Both Southerners were named Johnson. Andrew Johnson succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson succeeded Kennedy, born in 1908. John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Lincoln, born 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald, who assassinated Kennedy, born 1939. Both assassins were known by 3 names: John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald. Both names are comprised of 15 letters. Lincoln was shot at a theater named Ford. Kennedy was shot in a car made by Ford called Lincoln. John Wilkes Booth ran from the theater and was caught in a warehouse. Oswald ran from a warehouse and was caught in a theater. I like this one. A week before Lincoln was shot, he was in Monroe, Maryland, and a week before Kennedy was shot, he was in Maryland, Monroe. Oh, I get back to this postal thing. You know that when you walk in a post office, you no longer have a postal worker. If your mail comes back to you, it says it's coming back, and you should go to the Postal Service to see a retail clerk at the Postal Service. That's why they no longer have FBI pictures in the post office, and you can buy bubble gum and all kinds of toys in there, because it's now owned by someone that is not a citizen in this country. And consequently, I think probably the most extraordinary thing, well, this is a quotation from John Swington, and I'll have photocopies of this, and you can get a whole set if you wish. John Swington, the former chief of staff of the New York Times, was referred to while living as the dean of his profession. In 1953, he gave a toast before the New York Press Club in New York City, and he said this: "There is no such thing at this date of the world's history in America as an independent press. You know it and I know it. There's not one of you who dares to write your honest opinion. If you did, you know beforehand that it would never appear in print. I am paid weekly to keep my honest opinions out of the paper I am connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for similar things, and any of you would be foolish as to write an honest opinion that would be out on the streets, because you'd be out on the streets looking for a new job." And he goes on to say, "We're nothing more than jumping jacks. While our masters pull the strings, we dance." Consequently, our press, the media, is of course owned and controlled by money. In the ancient system of the Druids, thousands of years ago, even 1,000 years before the Roman Empire in Northern Europe, there was a whole system of religion and government called the Druidic system. That system exists today, right now, in this country and in the Western world. All over what we would call the Western world is a Druidic system. And if you understand the Druids and their symbols and their words and terms and their symbols in government and religion, then you will see Druidism everywhere. One of the most important symbols in the Druid religion was the magic wand, like Merlin the magician with his magic wands, and Mickey Mouse and with his magic wand. Magic wands, the reference works say, were always made out of holly wood. Consequently, the holly tree is very important to the ancient Celtic Druidic system of religion. Hollywood is very important to this whole process of the manipulation of the minds of people in the Western world. I have little to no respect for Hollywood or anybody working in it. I'm very close to it. I live around it. I know many people in it, but I know what it's doing. A most important subject, well, I said words. And before I hit that, let's go to the word public in a law dictionary. The word public is the populace, the community, that vast multitude which includes the ignorant, the unthinking, the credulous, who in making a purchase do not stop to analyze but are governed by appearances and general impressions. That's the public as far as the law is concerned. Now let me at this point, well, here's one more. This is a doozy. In a law book, if you call yourself a human being, go to a law book and look up the word human being, and it will tell you, see monster. All right? So then you turn over to monster, and there it is. A law dictionary's definition of a monster is a human being by birth and in some part resembling a lower animal. A monster has no inheritable blood and cannot be heir to any land. Consequently, we as human beings we're not men and women. We're considered human beings. And the word human being goes back to the Crusades. When the knights were traveling across Europe on their way to Jerusalem, they were fathering a lot of illegitimate children. And of course, the offspring of a knight would inherit the father's fortune. And the church was not going to allow that. So they designated all the babies coming from the knights to be acting like they're being human. But they're not actually human. They're not actually a man or a woman. They're like being human. But consequently, we today are like that. We're just acting like we're human. And consequently, the law reflects that. Now, here's the basis for what is going on here. Cecil Rhodes